everyone, I am Liz Holloway from Liz Holloway Design and welcome to my video tutorial. The system was echoing and so I am doing a voice overlay. Now if you are looking at the upper right hand corner an image of me, the speaking part is not going to match with what I am saying right now. I am going to play with this stamp set called We Must Celebrate and the Always and Forever stamp set, and it is only the tree trunks. So let's get started. We're going to use the Misty because I want to make multiple cards that I need to get done for today, and so I have pre-cut all my materials out in advance to show you what I have done. Now I just recently purchased a scan and cut number 2 and it is the 650W brand, and I want to show you at the end of the video what I have used it for, and I don't like fussy cutting, so I'm using this scan and cut 2 for fussy cutting. All the measurements can be found on my blog at lizhollowaydesign.ca, and I will link it to this video. Because I am doing multiple stamping, I've got all my Whisper White cardstock cut out and laid onto my Misty, which is on the upper right hand corner. Now I laid the tree trunk just below the cardstock so that only part of the tree trunk is showing. I am using soft suede ink and placing the ink right onto the tree trunk and closing the Misty door. I don't have my stamp apparatus yet, but that will be coming shortly. So in the meantime, the Misty will have to do. I am protecting the underside with a scrap white piece paper so that when I'm stamping, the ink is not going to go onto my foam, and then for future uses, it's not going to get onto my cardstock. I like to keep multiple mini Misties on hand, not just for classes, but as a secondary tool so that you do not have to swap your stamps out if you are doing lots of cards. I use them frequently and I highly recommend having multiple sets. I have pre-cut all my materials for the sentiment, and as I have said before, all my measurements are linked to my blog. This sentiment is then placed on the bottom right hand corner, flushing the corners to the Misty. I am lining up my sentiment before stamping, and having a Misty or a stamp apparatus will help you create more cards faster. I love using my Whisper White craft ink and white embossing powder on the black cardstock as it shows up so much nicer. When you have stamped your sentiment with white ink, dip the sentiment in the white embossing powder and shake off the excess. And then you're going to heat the embossed images until the white powder has melted away. Next, I have already stamped and fussy cut them with my brother in scan and cut, and I will show you at the end of the video how these are done. In the meantime, I will show you my stamping blends as I color these cute little critters. Now sometimes when you do your scan and cut, it doesn't scan and cut all the images in between the critters. So I'm using paper snips to cut them out. When you're doing this, it's not a big deal because it's only a small part of the cutting that you're fussy cutting by hand and by scissors. There is no right or wrong way to color, whether you use the lighter color or the darker color of the stamping blends, just as long as your two colors blend well without leaving a harsh line between the two. I always start with the lighter color, coloring the whole image and saturating the white cardstock, and then bringing in the darker. And then in this case, I'm going to show you the opposite. So I am coloring the using the darker color and coloring the top of the bear and his feet and bottom, and then gonna take my lighter color and then drawing in that color towards the center. Now you can use circular motion, and this is the best way to blend the two colors together. I am going to put on some background music and speed up the video to let you watch how I color this, and I'm not going to bore you with my coloring. So now that I have finished doing all the coloring, I am going to piece the Whisper White that's got the trunk and lay it onto the pink pirouette, and then attaching the pre-cut critters together, the raccoons, the bear, and the little bunny, and then just placing it right on top of the trunk. And then the next thing is to add the sentiment by placing two of the dimensionals on each end, and then placing it right over the hearts, and then add it to your base card. So that is it for this particular card, and let me show you how I did cut all these little critters out with the Brothers Scan and Cut. When you are planning to use your Brothers Scan and Cut, you will need crisp black images in order for the scan and cut to work. As well, you'll need the flat surface between the machine in front of you and behind you. And so I've only owned the machine for 3 days now, and I have found some tips and tricks for you to work with your stamping up images and your brother stamping scan and cut. And so here is what I did. I am using my Versamark with the black embossing powder, and then I'm stamping it right onto the Whisper White cardstock. Now if you want to fill it all up, I recommend stamping the whole sheet and letting the machine cut it all out all at once. Use your heat tool to melt the black embossing powder and make sure that you get all the powder melted. I made a mistake not checking, and the powder got onto my cutting mat, and I had to remove the unheated image. And when you're coloring your image, you can use your stamping blends or any other coloring mediums you wish, or you can color it later. It's not crucial which way you want to color it, whether it's now or whether it's later. When you're using your electronic cutter, the coloring takes a lot longer than actually fussy cutting the little characters. Okay, I am bringing now in my Brothers Scan and Cut. Then this is number 2. The model number is 650W. And so what you want to do is place your material onto the cutting mat. And so like I said, if that one area I had smudged it because I did not apply heat onto it, and so the powder had smudged onto the mat. And so here I'm just cutting it off so that I don't have to worry about it too much. And so now I'm going to place the material right onto the cutting mat and make sure that it is well stuck onto the mat. It's if you don't have it stuck on and it starts to cut, your images will eventually fall apart, and then your cutting is all ruined. You are going to turn on your machine, and on the screen will have various settings that you're going to follow along. So you're going to need to load your mat onto the machine. Okay, so then you're going to push the load button in, and then to the cut and scan, or scan and cut, and then to the machine. Okay, and then once that is done, there is a green button right onto the right hand side. And this is actually telling you to keep your fingers or any other jewelries away from the scanner before pushing the green button. Now the machine is scanning. The Brothers Scan and Cut is now scanning the image, and it will go from the top to the bottom and then come back down. And then so now you'll see an image where the image has been scanned. And so what you need to do is to make sure that you use your pen and adjust it to where the actual cutting should be placed. You want it to make sure that it is cutting in the area and checking it, and then hit OK. To make sure all the cutting areas are in place before starting the machine. Use your magnifying glass to view the image, and the magnifying glass will magnify up to 400%, and you're going to check your coordinates to make sure that the positioning blade is where you want the scan and cut to cut the materials. I am reviewing the image and I am showing that I've got all the images cut around it except for some of the inner part between the bear and the rabbit, but I'm not going to worry about that part because I'm going to hand cut that with my paper snips. So when reviewing the image, ensure that you don't have any other unknown marks on your display, such as little bubble lines below the image or above the image. And this is because the scanner actually picks up your material, your paper that is not securely down onto the mat. And so you need to remove those, otherwise your cutter will cut your mat away. Once you have all your coordinates reviewed, then you're going to X out of that position, and then you're going to go into the image, and then there's a plus and minus thing, and then there is the ratio. And so right now it is set at 0.12. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the plus button to 0.24. And what this does is that it will cut 0.24 inches away from the stamped image. Having it right on the exact coordinates will cut over top of your black images, and I want it slightly outside. And you can adjust this by playing around with your cutter. So once this is all set, you can go ahead and press the go button and the machine will cut for you. When your scan and cut has finished cutting, eject the mat off and carefully lift the cut materials off the mat. And you'll see that some areas have been cut and some areas have not. Now this is not the best scan and cut tutorial from me in any case, just because I am still learning this, and everything that I had done earlier trying to work with the microphone, it was echoing, and so I do apologize, but play around with your scan and cut and enjoy what you have right now, especially when you have stamping up images that does not have coordinating dies. Totally worth the scan and cut, so you don't have to worry about the fussy cutting. So yes, for me, I highly recommend it because I am a card maker, and this will also do vinyls in the very future. So when you're done, clean off your mat and add the protective sheet, plastic sheet over this mat to prevent any dust from settling right onto the mat. And that is it. So Anyways, have fun, and thanks for joining in, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now. If you have any questions, I can be reached at liz.holloway@gmail.com, or the following Facebook pages: Liz Holloway Design, Canadian Papercraft Cards and Scrapbook. Thanks for joining in, and have a great day.